Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Andrew Smirsick with Combat Air Training. Today's video we're going to be talking about the DMR SPR class put on by Don Edwards of Greenline Tactical. For those of you who are not familiar with the phrases DMR and SPR, DMR stands for Designated Marksman Rifle, and SPR stands for Special Purpose Rifle. Usually when someone says SPR, they're going to be referring to a AR-15, but usually 5.56 or .308, and other guys are using other calibers, but what it is a semi-automatic rifle set up to be accurate and shoot long distance. So free flow rail, some glass and magnification, usually bipods, and match grade ammo. And the role of the designated marksman is not a sniper role. He is a rifleman who is able to engage targets at a greater distance than the standard rifleman with more precision. And then he also fills all the normal roles of the rifleman. I will do another video on my setup talking about what I like about it and everything I use with this rifle and the different loads I've been using. But I mostly want to talk about the class here. I'll also do another video talking about the role of a designated marksman. But why do I want to take this class? Well, when I was in the Marine Corps, before I deployed to Yemen, our battalion put on a kind of an expedited DM course for us with the scout snipers as instructors, and they just taught us everything that they wanted us to know about being able to fill the role of a DM. And I saw what it really brought at the squad and platoon level, having a designated marksman integrated with the platoon, and also what the benefits were to having a rifle set up that way. Now, fast forward a couple months ago, I was putting together my DM rifle, and when I was in the process of doing that, I saw James Yeager posted a video with Don Edwards. I didn't know who he was at the time, but you know, he said he was former Special Forces, and he was doing classes in Florida. And I went looked at his website, greenlinetactical.com, and I saw that he had a DMR SPR course coming up, and this happened to be perfect time for me, as I wanted to learn more about how to fill that role as a DM, and I wanted to test out my equipment, and I want to shoot long distance because it had been a while since I had done that. Now, I was just barely able to make the class. I'm super glad I did. Let's talk about the class now. The class itself is not necessarily a entry-level class. If you're not familiar with your rifle yet, I would say you should go take a carbine class before this and really practice the stuff that you learn, so that when you get there, you're already familiar with how to shoot tight groups. You've got your fundamentals pretty well nailed down, and it'll be polished out in the class as well, but you don't want it to be brand new to you. And then also you want to be able to do stuff like run your gun, reloads, clear malfunctions, and just be very fluid with operating it. Now, it is a great entry level class for shooting long distance, because it's a very simple method that we use, and you're not necessarily going to be learning like a ton of different math. So the way Don teaches, Don Edwards, he's the for Special Forces, and his classroom environment is very relaxed, calm, and very smooth. He's real good about making sure that you don't feel like you're under a ton of pressure, and that you have time to ask questions, and you have time to work on your individual skills, and he can correct you if there's anything going on. Like, you know, some dudes need to tighten up their groups, and you know, Don just looked at like the way they're pressing the triggers and kind of fix their position to get a better natural point of aim, stuff like that. And I saw like instant improvement with a lot of the guys, and they're real happy just like from the start. And that's kind of how the course went. It was the beginning of the course, we were shooting groups, getting a proper zero. I would zero your rifle before class if you have the chance to, though. I'll put you ahead. But we shot our groups, then we got holds, and then we went on to other courses of fire using those targets. And the first day what we were using was 12-inch steel plates, which I really like, because I'm not totally thrilled if, you know, I can hit a man-sized target at whatever distance, because in a fight no one's gonna be putting their body out like this. And from my combat experience, really couldn't even see a full body when I was in those fights. So it's another reason why I like having the extra magnification, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, it also wasn't necessarily about making first round impacts, right? Like, we learn our holds so we could get those, but the further out you're shooting, the more variables there are. The more that the wind and the temperature, the humidity, and even the cloud coverage, everything like that is going to affect your round. The clouds being if you can't necessarily see the target as well. So the focus on it when we were doing some of the drills was being able to get at least a second round impact, being able to see where that round went. Now, on that note, Don recommends having a minimum of a 10 power scope. On my rifle, I'm running the Primary Arms GLX, the Greenline series 5.56 DMR HUD reticle. It's a 2.5 power to a 10 power. When I was shooting, I was running it on 10 power pretty much the whole time. The targets that we were shooting at were going from 254 meters or 277 yards all the way out to 610 meters or 667 yards. Don will say more magnification is better, and I definitely agree with that. Also, the more clarity in the glass that you have, the better. I got a chance to look through Don's scope, and a couple other guys had really nice scopes. Don recommends, I believe, the TMR 3 reticle, horse reticle, and looking through that, there's lots of good stuff on that. Also refer to Don's video with Big Daddy Unlimited, where he goes through and just talks DM gear the whole time. I'll link that in the description. But make sure you don't have a milled reticle, or excuse me, make sure you have a milled reticle. Don't have a MOA reticle, because especially when you look at long distance shooting, everyone prefers mills. So you're basically going to be talking the same language. You'll be talking the same language as Don and all the other guys when you're talking about your holds in relation to the mills, because that's kind of how we're doing it. We're basing our holds off the mills, and we weren't adjusting our turrets through the class, which is really nice too, because it's simpler, and you're not gonna necessarily want to be cranking around on that, especially because then we return back, you can't necessarily guarantee that's gonna go back to zero over time, because turrets do wear out, and sometimes they just don't set back to the same position. What next? So I was running a 10 power scope, right? When I went out to further distances, like out past, even at 400 yards, depending on how the sunlight was looking and how much the clouds were covering and how hot it was, the haze can obstruct it too. With my shitty garbage eyes and glasses drifting down my face, I can't necessarily see the impacts down range when it gets further away. So with that, I would definitely say, if you can, put on more magnification. Again, I'll talk about my rifle in a later video, but I am happy with a 2.5 to 10, but I'm not happy with it if I'm trying to shoot past 400 yards and make headshots. Now, the other thing that was really good about the class is learned a lot about the use of bipods, and also a sandbag for your buttstock. I was running the new Magpul bipods, and the reason for that is that they're lightweight, and also I have broken Harris bipods, and I also saw a lot break on IARs just alone on our first deployment to Afghanistan. It's just, to me, for this type of rifle, I want something more robust than the Harris. Not to say that they're bad, but they do break. I'm seeing that plenty of times, and I want to give these a shot and be able to give them a review. They work nicely. Maybe not the most stable, but I haven't tried a ton of bipods, but I think they work pretty well for me. And if you're trying to keep the price down on your gun and you need bipods, I would say the least expensive thing that would still be good to go is going to be the Magpul bipods. And now the bag. If you're going to take the class, I would recommend messaging Don Edwards and ask him what his preferred shooting bags are. But I used a Caldwell. It worked okay for me, but Don definitely had some better ones. But using the bag was new for me, but hugely beneficial. Now, some of the things that we did is not only putting it underneath the buttstock of the rifle, but also when you're building an unconventional position off of like a barrier of some kind, you can also rest the bag on there. Because when you have your rifle sitting on a hard surface, there's a lot more movement as opposed to putting a soft surface in the middle of that. In that experience, I learned a lot from. Now, also learned a lot about as far as how to align your eye with the scope. I am used to ACOGs and I'm used to iron sights, but variable magnification scopes and scopes that are actually made for shooting long distance, I am brand new to. So that was a trouble point for me before I took this class, but learned a few things there about how to align your eye with the scope. I mean, obviously I knew about scope shadow, that wasn't new to me, but there's a couple tricks, like a couple SF tricks that I learned that helped me out there too. The other thing was trigger control. He had a couple specific things on trigger control that really helped me. And again, I'm just kind of being broad about this, trying to list a few things that I learned, but you gotta take his class to get that information. Now, when it comes to trigger control, I was the only dude running a mil-spec trigger because I believe that before I replace this trigger, that should be like the last thing I need in the rifle to make it more accurate, right? Because if my fundamentals are sloppy with this trigger and I put in a new trigger, a nicer trigger in this gun, it's kind of like I'm taking steroids before I know how to lift, right? It's just a stepping stool. It's not gonna make you hit the target. It's not gonna guarantee it. Also, I actually like mil-spec triggers. I don't have a problem with them, especially just for a standard fighting type rifle. With my setup, I was able to make a hit out on the furthest target at 667 yards. Not everyone was able to. That's a really far shot for 5.56. And also, we couldn't really see where the impact was going when we missed. So it made it hard to get that second round correction. Ammo I used was the IMI 77 grain Razor Core. And also two other guys there were using it, which we all liked it. We've gotten tight groups with it. I'd say for myself, I'm not running a match barrel as I have a standard barrel in mine, but I'm able to get like just over 1 inch groups, so not even a match barrel and a standard mil-spec trigger, and I'm able to get tight groups of that. Now what Don says is that you know, if you can get 1 inch groups, you're golden, but if you can get 2 inch groups, you'll be fine. And also in addition to that, again, I'm making another video on my rifle setup, what exactly is in it, but you don't have to rush out and buy a brand new rifle. If you think back to what a DM rifle was back in the day, it originated as an M1 Garand with a scope, and that was an M14 with a scope, and then an M16 with a scope, and then A2 with a scope, and then it was an A4 with like an ACOG and a nicer barrel and a nicer trigger, and then all the way up to what they have now with Mark 12s and what they're doing with the M27, the IARs, and modifying them to fill that role. So what a DM rifle was back in the day is not what a basic rifle is nowadays. If you got a good AR-15 with a free float rail and you find a load that can group under 2 inches, you're gonna be fine. I don't get 1-inch groups with this setup, and I did fine. I'm happy with it. And since then, I've been doing a lot of long distance shooting, and I know I can make consistent headshots out to 400 yards, and I'm gonna try to push that out further here soon to talk more about the role of the DM rifle and how well my setup works for me. Now, Don Edwards is known mostly for night vision. He also offers many entry-level classes like defensive pistol classes. He also has red dot classes, which I believe, not for sure, but I think if you're with an agency and you want to carry a red dot, you can go through him. But check it with him before that, as I'm not sure all that works. But the night fire class is super popular. There's also a nighttime DMR class where they actually put a night vision unit out here in front of the scope. I forget which one I had issued to me in the Marine Corps, but I do know they work well, and it's a great force multiplier if you want to shoot at night. And he has that equipment there for you to rent. You don't have to own night vision to take this course. Companies give him night vision for his classes, so that guys can try him out and then get that training with it. Also, he has shotgun classes, carbine classes, and there's a cool room clearing class that's coming up, I believe in August, where you're gonna learn from him how to do room clearing, and it's headshots only. So that's kind of another advanced class, which I'm hoping I can make it for that. But hey, overall experience, it was great to shoot long distance again. I learned a lot from it. The other guys there were super cool, and he's got like this big alumni following in Florida where these dudes got like the most decked out gats I've ever seen and the most Gucci night vision, and they all love Don. And everywhere I go, and whenever I mention this class and someone there knows who I'm talking about, they're like, oh man, I wish I was half the shooter Don was, or oh, I wish I was half the instructor Don was. So very, very, very well liked guy and has a great reputation. I have an interview with him on my channel, so watch that so you can get to know him. But yeah, man, if you are wanting to do the next thing, set up a DM rifle. You can also call it and ask him or send him an email, see if you can use one of his scopes. He does have a few extra. I can't guarantee you can borrow one, but they're more for if someone else's rifle or scope goes down. But he definitely wants to train people. So if you aren't willing to drop the money on a scope right now, or you don't know what you want, just shoot him an email. See if you can use one of his for the class. And also, one last thing that I believe the guns you should own. Everyone wants it for defensive use and in case of civil unrest and for the apocalypse, right? I think you should own a Glock 19 for concealed carry, AR-15 for defensive use, home defense, and civil unrest, and then a DMR. If you're gonna own 3 guns, those should be it. The DMR, the capabilities it gives you, and how effective you can be with that rifle, it's awesome. There's nothing else like it, and there's a big difference too between having a bolt gun that really you don't want to have to do room clearing with that, and having a rifle that you can do both with. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Check out Don Edwards' website, greenlinetactical.com. I'm gonna have links in the description for that. Also, watch my interview with him. Watch the video on Big Daddy Unlimited with him, and if you want to know a lot more about the gear he recommends. And then give me a comment, subscribe, and share this video, please. All right, guys, take care.